Hi there, we're here today to talk about the Life Ionizers Next Generation X installation with reverse osmosis system. I'm here to show you how I would set this up to my kitchen sink and set an additional faucet for clean running reverse osmosis water via the Life Ionizer Next Generation X setup. So next what I'm going to do is go over all of the components that came with the system and what type of tools we'll need to get this job done for you today. So everything that comes with the Life Ionizer Next Generation X system from the company is here. First off, there is a water tank that is a storage tank that will be storing our water. Now know this, there's a bladder inside of this tank, and the bladder, when water pushes in and stores inside the tank, it stores up over the course of an hour or two. And then when you want to tap water from your tap system, the bladder pushes the water out of this tank. And so this is just a water already pre-filtered reverse osmosis storage tank. This is the base for the storage tank, where it will go underneath the sink in just a moment. The water line system, this is an all-in-one already put together system that is set up ready to go underneath the sink. So here you have the 3 filters that the water is going to be running through. Then it's going to run through an RO membrane element, and then it's going to run through this, which is the chlorine taste and odor reduction. And out of that system it will go to this coral calcium remineralizer, and from there that will go to my faucet. The faucet tap that comes with the system. So inside this box are all the parts and pieces we need to put together our system, which comes with the Life Ionizer setup. So this faucet right here will be the faucet that we will tap our water our reverse osmosis water from, and this faucet comes ready to go. We'll install that in just a bit. In addition to that, it comes with a full kit. So let's go over what's in the kit. What we have are 4 colored tubes, which should coincide with the quick start guide and our instructions 1 through 7 on how to install this kit together. Next, when we have to take out any one of the media components from the tanks, this cranks and opens it up. We get the media element out, and you can replace each one of these 4 different tanks and also the smaller tank right here, which is the RO membrane, and get that set as well. Next, what we have are the connection elements. We have a connective element here, connective element there, another connective element. This is going to be the intercept line that comes from the cold water line that's going to come underneath our sink and taps into our system. This is a T-valve, so it's a shut-off valve, it looks like. We'll go over that shortly. Water pressure regulator if you need it. We won't. And then these are going to be strap elements, which are going to allow us to tap into, if we needed to, into our drain if we needed to open up another line underneath our sink, which I'll show you in a moment what your options are with that. And last but not least, there are 2 more connector elements which we will go through in the setup. So underneath your sink you need to first clear out everything. You need to find a space where you're going to put the tank. I'm going to put it over here. It'll slip underneath this pipe and it'll sit right here nicely. Over here are going to be my containers for the reverse osmosis system, and the last tank is going to be right back here. What we're going to basically do is bypass the cold water incoming line and put a T in it, and that T connector is going to tap the water and run it through our system, goes to the tank, and then from the tank it's going to go into our faucet. Now recognize a couple things here. We have a drain line right here that's coming from our dishwasher. Now, if you don't want to cut another hole at the top of the sink, you can take the dishwasher overflow valve and tap that directly into your garbage disposal line, and that's what one of the kits there are for. We don't need to do that today, thankfully, because we already have a hole set up at the top of the sink, and that's going to save a lot of time. Let me run you to the top of the sink and show you the hole setup already. So at the top of the sink, we have an overflow tap that's already there for the dishwasher, and I already have another hole drilled set for the faucet line. This makes my life a lot easier on this setup. If you didn't have this capacity to already have this hole drilled and set up, then you'd take this overflow line out from your dishwasher and tap it directly into the garbage disposal. I'm not going to be showing you that part today because we already have a hole. So next is going to be the setup. Before we get started and explain the entire setup and the flow line, how all these connect and where they go before they finally reach your faucet, which will be on the top of our sink, before we do that, something they don't explain in the quick start guide is each one of these valves have a little clip, a little hook clip, a C-clip, and those little hook clips have to pop off. This is a shark bite connection. So once the tube pops in, it's locked in. So we remove all of those little shark bite connectors. Now it's interesting because some of these connectors also have a horn which needs to be removed. Don't try to forcibly remove the horn, you'll damage this piece. What you have to do is remove the C-clamp hook with a small flathead screwdriver. Move the valve line down and the horn pulls out. Now, I had to push this valve line down to pull the horn out. Now, both of these little connectors are identically the same, even though they didn't start that way. Now, here's the tricky part. As you look at your reverse osmosis tank system, each and every one of these lines have a little C clip that need to be removed. And here we have a horn. So I remove the C clip, press in this ring right down here in, which allows me to pull the horn out. They don't show you that in the instructions, and that is essential to doing this properly. So pulling the C clip out, pushing that line down, pulling the horn out. Did you hear the air pressure come out? There's another C clip. There's another horn. And C-clips. There are a few C-clips on lines inside here, so I will be careful about removing those. Here we go. There's one on the red line. There's one on this black line. There's one on this yellow line. I'll remove all of those little C-clips and then we'll move forward. Alright, so we removed a lot of these little C-clips that have a little hook end, and there's a lot of them. Everywhere there was a connector. In fact, here's another right here that I'm showing you. You grab the C-clip and you pop it out. It's on every single one of these lines in here. Yellow, black, red, yellow, black, another yellow, red, and another yellow. Everywhere where there's a point. So we removed all of those little C-clips and any of those little horns, and now I can explain the line system. So here's how it works. We turn off the cold water line, which is on the right hand side of the sink. We turn off the line, disconnect that hose, which we'll show you in just a moment. We'll bypass it with this T. This we'll plumber's tape this, and we'll plumber's tape the other end of the other connector, and we'll connect those there. So the water will pass right through this and go straight to our faucet up here on the sink. This is the little T line that comes out. Our red connector is going to pop in, and this is a shark bite connection. So when it pops all the way in and it locks, it's in. So this will be the T valve and a shutoff for this system if we wanted it to. This line will then take us to our reverse osmosis tank. So the end point of our reverse osmosis tank gets inserted with this little line, and the red line will go into this line. It will flow through all 3 tanks. Then we'll install this connector on the out point. We'll screw that on and connect the red connector that's already to this RO membrane. It's already all set up. It will then run on the backside through a tube, through this RO membrane, through the yellow line that's in here, up here to the flow line of the chlorine taste and odor reduction. Now understand that right here there's a little T line. That's where this yellow cable is going to come in and pop into this shark bite. Then we'll have this connector go to the top of our reserve tank. And on that line will be the other end of the yellow line that will pop into the top. So that will be reserve, and it will pressure and push water through in reserve through this membrane. Once it leaves this membrane, it's left this setup, this RO setup. The last line of connection is going to be out of this line to the end point right here of our coral calcium remineralizer. The out point from this, so you could use either the blue or black lines. What I would probably do is go from the RO with the blue to the in with this blue, and then the out with this black line, and the out is then going to connect to the end of our connector here, which will then connect to this shark bite setup that we have. So this will be our tap line that we're going to have coming out of the sink. This is one extra connector that you're not going to need to use. These are the fascias for the sink. Next, we're going to turn off our valve system, so we turn off the water line. So I'm going to crank this lefty loosey, nope, righty tighty, yep. We're going to turn it 90 degrees, so that should have turned off the water. And then at the top of the sink, I'm going to release the line. Let's go up here, which reduces any, you can see that no water pressure, no water line is coming through. No water is coming through. So now what I'm going to do is take my wrench and disconnect the cold water line, and I will install this bypass T line. That's what will happen next. All right, once we have the T line set up, I turned the valve off on the T line, checked the water connection, made sure there was no leaks from the hose going to the cold water faucet from the main line in, and I turned off my valve that goes to this system. So the water line valve is off, and now what I can do is tap into the line. Now I'm going to fish this behind all of my cables here so they're not in the way, and tap my shark tooth into the line all the way in. Make sure you press them all the way in, and then pull back out to make sure that it's on a tight connection. Now this is ready to go into my reverse osmosis inline. But before I do that, I need to take my elbow bracket. We're going to screw that in, and I'm going to put some plumber's tape onto the threads of this and then tap this line in. All right, next I'm going to take my elbow and go to the in line on my tank, turn it all the way, and I put plumber's tape on the threads, tapping this all the way in until it's nice and snug. And then I will tap the water line into the bottom of the shark tooth until it pops. Now we've got excess line down here. So now that the line is in, we're now ready to go to the line out. I'm going to plumber's tape. Again, I'll show you the plumber's tape process on this, where we get a clean piece of plumber's tape, place it onto the threads. Be sure you don't put the plumber's tape in an overlap fashion where the black ring grommets are at. You don't want that to be interrupted, because that's where the true connection flow for the valve line is at. So we're going to make sure that that doesn't get disturbed. We screw that into the outline, get it to a nice snug position, tap this line system into, boom, till it pops and clicks into this line. Now what we're ready to do is go from this line system, goes through this membrane goes through here and comes out to the yellow line. And I'll show you what's happening next. So the next line for me is to connect the yellow cord, the yellow line, to my excess tank. But I'm going to place that over here, and I don't want to do that right now, even though that's the next step. I will do that shortly. In fact, what I'll do is I'll prep this line and get the tape off of that, get this line set up so that it's ready to go. So I'll pop it into the shark bite grip. There it is popped, and it's ready to go to the reserve tank, but I'm not going to run that line yet. In fact, what I'm going to do is prep my faucet line with this connector. And so I'm going to set up some plumber's tape onto this faucet line. And again, what you want to be careful of is when you set up this plumber's tape, don't let any excess go into the line. See where that excess is right there? I want to smooth that into the groove so it's not sitting over here into the outside of the line and it doesn't get in the way of the water flow. So now I'm going to tap this line onto here, which is basic. Oh, so before I do that, I want to make sure that fits. You need to put it through the setup up here on top of the sink. That's what we're going to move to next. Okay, so all the parts and pieces that come with this faucet are these components here. And the way this is going to work is the hole that you've drilled that fits this faucet line, when it goes into the hole into the line, you're going to need some washers and some fascias that are going to go in between. So the first thing that's going to go in between is this metal fascia that will go on the line first. That will meet up here. Then this plastic ring goes on right underneath. Then this rubber washer will go right up on top. And this is what's going to interface from the top of the sink. So that's your setup from the top of the sink. And when this gets set up, this will turn on and off, and this will swivel in any direction that you need or want. So now that I have that set up there, what'll hook up underneath is my washer, my secondary washer, this for the grip, so it tightens up, and you can either use this screw or this screw. That screw is for a different setup, so we're going to use this basic bolt, excuse me, not screw, nut, excuse me. And that'll go on underneath the sink to hold this in. That's what I'm going to do next. Alright, so what's going to hook up to the faucet pipe that's coming from underneath is the two washers, the grip, the nut. Once that locks it on to the top, or to the sink top, this little valve connector with the shark bite will connect to the line of the faucet underneath. And I'll have that hooked up now. So this black line will connect to the shark bite that I've just set up on the faucet back end. I'm going to pop that in there, have this line open and ready, and fish it behind all of this piping, letting it sit right over in this area. Eventually it's going to be connected to this coral calcium remineralizer on the out point eventually. So what I'm going to do is hook that line up and then hook this calcium remineralizer up to it, so that's working from the back end, and I will put that in first because this is going to go in before this setup. Alright, next what we're going to do is plumber's tape the storage tank and put the storage tank valve onto the storage tank. Finger snug. Next I'm going to place the storage tank underneath the sink. Set it under sideways to get it under. Place it upright. And put the stand underneath the tank. So next what we're going to look at is the drain valve, which needs to come out of the reverse osmosis drinking system. It's a drain valve that's going to tap into this line that you see here from my garbage disposal, and there's a drain line that's already set up on my faucet system. So what I'm going to do is take this valve line that we've been given and fit the shark bite tube from the system to that little shark bite fitting. Now, here I am pointing at the tube that I'm going to drill my hole into. I'll line that hole up with this little gauge system that I've got. But the challenge here is making sure that that little hole right there that I'm pointing at is lined up with the hole that you drilled into that pipe. And then we're going to basically screw that on. But in between the pipe and this fitting is this little spongy leak-proof fitting. So I'm gonna fit that onto the back of that. So let's explain what we've set up so far. So far, we've got a T-valve that's coming in from the inline water. We've connected up the faucet water back to it. We've got the red line coming out of that T-valve into the reverse osmosis tank. Water will travel through here. We put a valve into here and connected this piece in. Water will then travel through here, through this tank. It will come out of this and hook up to the reserve tank, which I'll hook up in just a moment. Then we'll hook up the blue line to this out valve right here. That will hook up to the coral calcium remineralizer. From the coral calcium remineralizer, we've got that hooked up to the faucet. And then we'll be done. So I'm going to place that in right now. We've now finished with all of our line connections. We have the main water line coming into the tank, going out into the reserve tank, and the reserve tank pushes it back through the coral calcium remineralizer. The remineralizer will go right into our faucet up here. So once I turn this valve on, you're going to want to let this line fill up the tank and purge the line by leaving the faucet line open at the top up here and letting the system fill. So once this is open up here and the system fills, it will then take approximately 2 hours to fill up that tank and to process through the line. So it's going to come out with air first, and then it's going to come out with a kind of sooty white mineral content that's going to need to drain out of the system. So what'll happen is I'm going to let that tank fill up for a bit and then purge the system, let all that line water out, and then after about 2 processes of doing that, letting it fill up for 2 hours, purging the whole system, and letting it fill up for 2 hours, and then purging the whole system, your line is ready to go and you're going to have amazing reverse osmosis water for your home. That's it.